So Mary's got to bring us back to it. I would think. He's not. Right.
Not a chance.
I'd like to call the work session of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Marino.
Here.
Commissioner Swaney.
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Jalazinski. Commissioner.
Here.
Here.
Except for Commissioner Jalazinski, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And Commissioner Jalazinski did let me know that he could not attend tonight. His services were needed on a lake
Way up north in
in
Canada.
Canada. So. Well deserved. I'd like to take just a moment to honor someone who was a long-term employee for the county. Passed away this past Friday. Amy Dazinski, circuit court clerk for quite a few years and very well regarded by everyone that she knew and everyone that she worked with. And I'd like to just take a moment of silence to kind of honor her and support her friends and family. So if you'd join me in that. Okay, up next is approval of the agenda. We'll start with general public comments. Under presentations and special reports, we have Bob Brown from Region 7 Area Agency on Aging, Administrative Controller Report, and then committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Finance and Administration Committee is ready.
Thank you. Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
The Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
And Resources and Public Works Committee.
The Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
There's no administrative controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll have general public comment again at the end of the meeting and then announcements and adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Next is general public comment. Is there anyone for general public comment? We have no one online. I'm seeing. Okay, we'll keep moving. Presentations and special reports. Bob Brown, Region 7 Area Agency on Aging.
Let them roll. We're live and anyways, my name's Bob Brown. I am the Executive Director of Region 7 Area Agency on Aging. I've been in that post since 2017, January, and I appreciate the governance that has allowed me to stay in that position and do good works for seniors. Our mission basically is to keep seniors out of institutions and in their homes with quality of life. That's what an area agency on aging does. I am part of a very interesting area agency on aging. Almost 40 years ago, 10 counties, 1 city got together and decided to form an area agency on aging. They found out that under the Older Americans Act, they weren't big enough to be one on their own. In fact, not even 3 of the biggest ones would be able to be one due to the demographics. They formed it, and I will be telling you a good story on the celebration you should have in that wise decision many, many years ago, and the continued support from the counties in regards to doing that. One thing I'll say is it allows you to have local input to a very large network. And ours is actually, again, governed by the 10 counties in the city. So you actually own us under 501c3, not like a shareholder, but you own our governance. That's how 501c3s work. I thank you at this point because part of my governance is obviously my advisory council, which is almost in the realm of area agencies on aging, as is important as my board of directors. You've appointed Joseph Salmack from the tribe here, and he's been a very valuable asset, not only here, but in Lansing, and his advocacy is awesome for older Americans across the state of Michigan. And Jacqueline Curtis, who's in the audience from the advisory council. Appreciate those appointments. We also, I'd be very amiss to tell you, you've got a very valuable employee, if that's the right term, in Jennifer Crawford, the executive director here on Commission on Aging. We could not be successful without the Commission on Agings across the 10 counties, whether it be a Department on Aging, Commission on Aging, Council on Aging. That network is very valuable in delivering services directly to seniors. Since we do very limited direct services, we are the stewards, we are the oversight, we're the technical advisors to the providers. And you might ask, why Region 7 and not another entity such as, Isabella Commission on Aging? One, no one county is big enough. You got to remember that. They have the right of first refusal to be one. They passed that right 40 years ago wisely. Second, you can't do direct services except for care management of a sort and some transportation. But with that steward, it's very important. And with the lack of you not owning your own destiny, that's that area, that function, area agency on aging would go to the state. They would form what they call a statewide area agency on aging. They take over that role and they're allowed 10 to 15% admin. Or an insurance company would obviously come in and volunteer to try to help you do services. You've heard the term managed care organizations, just another glorified word for an insurance company. And again, high admin. I'll also get to, don't tell me it ain't so joke in a little bit. But with that, our administration is 5.1%. We are very effective, very efficient. We strive to maintain within a couple decimals of 5. That is our goal. And we achieve it almost every year, at least since 17. So the other thing is, we help subsidize a lot of valuable programs, and we contract out, and we have developed a network of providers. So if you take the 7 agencies that are acting on behalf of the counties, we have another 120 providers across the 10 counties that get in the home and take care of those people, give them baths, make sure they have meals, get them transportation, and just help them stay in their home instead of being institutionalized. The one program that we did do directly, we bid many, many years ago. The board was very wise to become a waiver, what they call a My Choice waiver agency when they first were started back in the John Engler days. If anybody remembers our governor, John Engler, he did start that program. And it's been a very, very valuable program. It's a Medicaid program. The Older Americans Act programs are not, they are not income-based, they are just need-based on services. But the Medicaid, you have to have need-based, you have to meet nursing home level of care, and you need to qualify by income. But it is an awesome program, and all those services, bathing, personal hygiene, toileting, homemaking, cleaning, chore services, all get taken care of under that program for a senior that's staying in the community. Another program that we deliver directly, but also partner with the commissions on aging. Many of our counselors actually are employees of the commissions across the 10 county. Is what we call Medicare, Medicaid assistance program. For short, it's called MAP. That's the abbreviation if you ever hear that term. And you know, you see all those ads for Medicare Advantage programs and I'll get you free $100. Well, trust me, it's not free. They are incentives to get you to sign up, and they are Medicare Advantage programs. And you remember I said, please tell me it ain't so, Joe. How many of you know Joe Namath? And how many of you seen him on TV?
Wishing that stuff.
You know, and gosh, I loved him as a quarterback, but you know, he is selling you insurance for private insurance companies. If you want an unbiased opinion, please call us. It's in the packet I sent out. We will help your folks in the fall get into the best Medicare Advantage program they can get into, or whatever else insurance. There's a few other ones out there that are available to them depending on their incomes. We'll set them up with their choices, and we'll tell them the pluses and minuses and pros and cons. And usually it's based on drug formulary. A lot of people want the Cadillac, but they're only taking 3, 4, 5 meds. Well, there's a lot of plans that are based for, say, diabetic folks or heart folks. And if you fall into that kind of category, you will save money by working with us. In fact, across the 10 counties with our clients, we saved $1.2 million annually for our clients that we help. So send them to us. We will help them in the fall. Please don't tell, please, actually tell them, please don't call Joe. Just don't. One of the other things I like, since my commissions, my county commissions are my governance, and they are my oversight, as well as my board of directors and advisory council, is I'd like to report on my audit and my fiscal stability every year. So my audit, you know, I come from the days of, you ever heard the term unqualified? Now it's unmodified. We are unmodified. We've been unmodified since 2017, since I took over the helm. But more importantly, our management letter has no recommendations and or findings. So we're clean as a whistle. Our factor for our fund balance is what they call 2.6 in cash flow. 2 is what they like, that's the minimum, the optimal minimum they like to see. What that means is if you got a factor of 2, you can go for 3 months if all your funding was cut off. We're at about 6 months. Again, remember, these are social programs we're running on behalf of the citizens of Michigan and the counties. And if we're keeping the money in the bank, we're doing a disservice to folks and not supplying them with it. We think 6 months, and every year I say this as I go around, we think 6 months is a good cash flow. You know, you gotta judge. We've never seen a shutdown go longer than 2 or 3 months. So we think that 3 months is maybe a little short. We had that one scare that one time. But anyways, we could manage until they figure out stuff and get back on track. So we're very healthy that way. So that's the fiscal. Of course, you being good stewards of the money, you make a donation, contribution, a local match to the county. If you go into the packet I gave you, I love this sheet. Kind of tell you what's going on. If you look at it, Isabella County gives us a little over $2,500. The county receives in services dollar amounts returned from us going after the things that we're allowed to go after on your behalf and under your governance. We return over $2 million worth of services to your citizens, and we serve over 1,800 citizens in 2022. It's a remarkable program. We find that we help a lot of people. I will tell you that the biggest share is those folks that we're keeping out of a nursing home. Of the money goes to those folks. Almost 70 people we keep out of a nursing home in Isabella County. By the way, we're one. So some people say, well, that's a lot of money. That's 1/3 the price of a nursing home. We're 1/3 the price to keep them out. If you go to the other page, we've added a new page, but what you'll find most importantly, directly to your Commission on Aging and or your county. So for that 2,500, actually goes back into your funds to deliver your services under the contracts, say Meals on Wheels, or home delivered meals, your care management, which is you partner with Midlands Senior Services to do. That's that in-home community-based services that isn't income proofed. Qualified for that. So those are a lot of the programs that we give. We're also asking people to call your congressman right now. There is a proposed 22% to what we call 3B funding. That's all you got to tell them is support the increase to 3B funding for area agencies on aging. And that would be your congressperson. That's the general money that gives us flexibility to work with folks like Jennifer if they need a stove. Or if somebody needs a little more expensive home chore project than just a little ramp or grab bars or something like that. And it hasn't been increased in 5 years. So you might say, oh, 22 is a big jump. Well, when you do the inflation, everything else, it's actually it's not even a wash, it's a loss. So please help us. We wanted 44. President only proposed 22. That's my presentation at this point. If it's appropriate, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Brown? Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. I retired up in Gladwin and I got a call from my predecessor and said they'd like me to apply. I really appreciate taking care of seniors. Every day I get up and I know I'm feeding 3,000 seniors today. That's how many you as a group have been involved with doing.
Nice. Yep. And we're glad that you're as happy with Joe Salmick and Jackie Curtis and Jen Crawford as we are.
Give her a raise. A lot of headaches,
Yeah,
especially through the pandemic and the things that the people that I had to work with and the things that happened, just tremendous folks stepped up to do things. So I know you got your budgets and everything, but it's a tough position to fill. And she does a fabulous job and she's been a great partner with us. So very professional.
yep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I thank you for your time because I don't have a marketing budget because that would take food out of somebody's mouth. So
Mm.
this is the way we try and do it. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Administrator Controller Report.
Hey, thank you, Chairman. I think that probably the biggest news is that the jail project now has our building permit and things are moving out on Remus Road. You will see foundations being dug very, very shortly. I think summer begins tomorrow and so does the digging. It took a little while, obviously, to reorganize and get contractors back who had left, but the easement secured, Eagle approvals, township approvals. So foundations are going forward, still working through like our trade permits through the county. Those will come obviously later. But we're gonna see walls soon. So we're really excited about that. Another big first with the jail recently, we did make the first payments, interest only. They were due June 1st of this year. So we now know the money moves the other way. We've been taking draws from USDA, but we actually had to make a payment June 1st. So I wanted to let you know that that is done and very successful. I wanted to let you know, if you were unaware, June 6th in our county, we had, I'm not sure if the homicide occurred in the county, but I know that the apprehension of the suspect occurred in our county. And I just wanted to not only thank law enforcement for their swift action, but also our dispatchers at 911. I understand that they were helpful, very helpful in apprehending that suspect. The next day on June 7th, out at 911 at the Emergency Operations Center, Director Griffiths and Emergency Management Coordinator Helen Lee performed a tornado exercise that I attended. Community Development Director Tim Newport was there, as well as Sheriff Maine and Jake Borton from the MRF all took part. And what a fantastic exercise to just taste what it's really like when that EOC gets opened and called into action. I know we were just pretending that day, but thank you to everybody who showed up, everybody who learned. Thank you, Mark and Helen. And I hope we do a lot more training in that regard. It just helps to make it a little less chaotic, I think, when something actually happens. I wanted to let you know that Jake Borton, MRF Director, Charity Suite, Operations Manager, and Commissioner Jim Marino recently attended what's called the Accelerator course through the I2P3. I2P3 stands for, so II is intergovernmental initiatives, and the three P's are public-private partnership, right? So this whole accelerator program that they're involved in is basically to avoid things going into the landfill and increasing recycling numbers and using partnerships to do it. So the three of them just got back from an intense class last week up north, and super excited about what they're taking forward for possibilities for our MRF in regards to the feasibility study that we just performed. So since I met with you last, we've had, I think, 18 hours of budget meetings. And you'll hear about the first draft of the budget that was reviewed at finance on Tuesday, working to close the funding gap from what has been requested. I did attend the MCAO, it's the Michigan Association of County Administrative Officers Conference a couple weeks ago. It was a great opportunity to talk about the Part 115 changes, the MRF opportunities that we have, and really get out in front of the materials management planning with other counties. They really think it has to do with landfills, and if you don't have a landfill, it really doesn't apply to you. So it was a great opportunity to talk with them about that. I also got to talk with them about their IT staff in other counties. I've been told that we've been getting by with 2, and that's mightily small for our size. And I found out from other counties that yes, Isabella, 2 seems pretty slim for your size. So it's really interesting to get in a room with people like that and benchmark and start to talk about some of those things. I know the opioid settlement, the dollars we got from that started a conversation about, well, if we're going to set those aside, what else should we be setting aside? So I got to the question Chairman Hope had for me. What do other counties do with the other half of their convention and facility taxes that doesn't go to your substance use disorder agency? And I found out that overwhelmingly, they all put it in general fund. They don't earmark that other half. But it's interesting, again, just to sit and to benchmark. Very, very much time well spent. Standard 8 and the MIDC plans was a big part of that conversation up there. So it's good to see where we stack up, if you will. Going forward, we've got Commissioner Embry and I keep meeting with Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works. They are still seeking a new fiduciary, and I think we'll hear something come forward from them in the coming months. Opioid group we continue to meet, and the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation is involved now. So maybe we're going to be able to optimize those dollars. Insurance committee is meeting now the second Monday of the month and still forging ahead, even in the absence of the HR and the payroll and benefits position. So the big elephant in the room, I think, is the staff changes in administration. Since I was here last, you're probably very aware at this point, administration did lose 2 more staff members. Executive Assistant Jessica Jarosowicz is headed to the Claire Gladwin RESD. Very good move for her and closer to home. Miss Ginny McLeod, our AP clerk, is headed back to CMU, I understand. So I learned another important thing I think I learned at conference was that vulnerability is a good trait of a leader. I'm still trying to unpack that one, but I had to go to the department head meeting last week, very vulnerable and talking about the fact that admin needs help, and if you can, please help us as we're trying to cover duties essentially with not enough people left to do so. So I would like to thank Commission on Aging, who sent essentially their accounts payable clerk, Carolyn Oblinger, is going to be reviewing AP weekly. Trial court is loaning us their accountant, Carrie Lawrence, who's going to come over once a week to print those AP checks, things that can't be done remotely. Prosecuting attorney's office will be sending down Dorothy Marshall tomorrow to sit and learn from Jessica. Thank you. And then there's Melissa. Melissa and I have been back to back, and I gotta say, when our payroll and benefits administrator left, Melissa spent every hour she could to learn from Emma before she left. When accountant Chris Whitmer left, Melissa learned what she had to from Chris, although Melissa had been responsible for those duties prior. Melissa taught the accountants that we're contracted with now, one's remote and one comes in a day or two a week. She trained them on how to do their duties. And then when Jessica said she was leaving, Melissa said, show me, teach me, I can do that. She took back what those positions had taken on when payroll benefits left. And then when Ginny left or announced her that she's leaving, Melissa said, wait a minute, I can't enter invoices, approve invoices and cut checks. Right, we're at critical mass. I know that I've struggled with what does the structure look like. When I came, I believe there were 7 employees in administration. I know we've struggled. What's the best way to organize duties? This is an unfortunate loss with all of the staff, but it does present certainly an opportunity to look at things. This board has allowed me the opportunity to take that payroll and benefits administrator and divide it into a payroll clerk and an HR specialist, because we see those duties can't be done with one person. I have had success in interviewing. We do have accepted offers out, but there's a bit of time before we can bring them on and start to rebuild. I wish Commissioner Jelizinski was here because at Tuesday's Finance and Administration Committee meeting, we talked about the fiscal 24 budget and the structure that it has for admin.
Yep.
It has an administrator and a deputy administrator. It has 1 accountant instead of 2. It has an executive assistant. It has a payroll clerk, an HR specialist, and an AP clerk. So I believe that's 7. It takes us back to that 7 number, but adjust it down 1 less accountant, and then having that payroll and HR split into 2 positions. I feel like that structure can work. And that is built into fiscal 24 budget. What I told Finance Tuesday was that if I wanted to move forward with that structure in the current year, I would have to bring a budget amendment to you. Since Tuesday, I've been thinking on that because Commissioner Jelizinski suggested that in Clinton County, they had a really good system that worked with a deputy administrator that was finance focused. Looking at that job description, that deputy administrator is in charge of audit, in charge of budget, and heavy on finances. With moving to 1 accountant, I think that could work if the deputy had the finance focus. But when I look at the lapsed wages in the current year, I would not have to come to you for a budget amendment because there's so much lapsed wages. The admin budget can absorb the extra of having a deputy administrator in the current year. So where I'm leading to all of that is I feel it's time to name an interim deputy administrator. I feel that an interim allows time to test the waters, not only for the person in the position, but of course, the department as well, to see if we can divide those duties up to make that structure work. And because I feel she really has made this her burden to bear, because she stayed, because she stepped up, because she's done it all. In department head, I said, you get paid, thank Melissa. If your vendors get paid, thank Melissa. If you have a budget this year, thank Melissa. Melissa is doing all of the work. I don't know if she knows if she wants to continue to do that work or not, but I would be honored to have her serve as my interim deputy administrator controller till we figure it out. I don't need to do a budget amendment right now, but I do feel like I wanted to have this conversation publicly. Not something I want to do and then tell you about, but I hope you can understand my reasonings. I do feel it is the very best thing for this county. Are there any questions for me?
As for me, on finance and administration, I know how heavily we rely on Miss Melissa, and she's always been, for better term, Johnny on the spot with everything that we've asked. She was on top of everything. And me personally, coming from my background, I'm very excited to have someone in that position who is has a strong financial background, who I know I can have real conversations with and help us as a county move forward to ensure financial stability long term. And I think she can help us provide that. So, thank you.
Controller Frost, thank you very much. Don't have any appointments to boards and commissions. Brings us down to committee reports, finance and administration, and Commissioner Ember, you've got a heavy load.
Oh. Yep.
We have faith in you, sir.
Well, here goes the show. Let's see, we have our first item. Finance administration is to consider and ratify placing on file the June 2nd, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $297,719.15. The June 9th, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $280,764.46. And the adjustment list dated June 15th, 2023. Now, the June 2nd invoice list had some larger items. If you look at it, shows drains, R.L. Lauren to R.L. Lawrence, quality excavating and trucking and advanced drainage. Roughly $65,000 in expenses to the drains. We also had, I did have a question about this next items, had to do with the Mount Pleasant Police Department, CMU Police Department for the core technology records management system, which obviously came from the 2% funds. I need a little enlightenment there. I'm the new guy and I'm not sure what that is exactly.
You Sheriff can give a lot better details about the project. You are right, sir. It is that interoperability
That we're moving
2%
forward with.
grant
Can't begin in.
for records management system.
Okay.
Shared system, so we've got shared files, but
Thank you, Sheriff Maine.
So that's correct. That was the 2% request. We did a collaborative effort. We've done those throughout the years with different public safety. That project was the one where we are going to tie in all the records management systems together. We actually were able to tie City of Mount Pleasant, CMU, and the tribal PD is also going to come on board. Their dispatching CADs are going to connect with our dispatching CAD, so that we will see what everybody's doing. It's much safer, be able to share information quicker and pass complaints back and forth to the jurisdictions and so forth. So I wrote the grant, because we only have one supplier or one person to put the grant in. So I wrote the grant, was successful. It's a 2-part grant. We'll get the other half in the fall. So we reimbursed the city, and CMU had already started the process. We didn't know when they wanted to get going. We reimbursed them 50% of what their cost was for that project. Currently, we have a document at legal at the tribe that it's like a 1-page letter of understanding that we're going to pay for the tribal PD's CAD and RMS as well through that 2% request. So basically, we'll put 50% down in the fall, we'll get the other half and out of that 2% and do that. So at the end of the day, we're all on the same page, we're all connected and we're all kind of sharing from cradle to grave information. So and that was back to Shepherd PD as well. We had a little bit and then we had a project. So it was a big project, had a lot of fingers to it. The good thing was, didn't cost us anything, and we're going to have a really good interoperable system for public safety soon.
Well, ideally here, we're talking better communication is going to equal better service.
Absolutely. So for example, a call comes in, but maybe it's a 911 cell phone call. So Mark Griffiths' shop gets it at 911 because they get the 911 calls, but they find out it's either a CMU or maybe a tribal event. So instead of calling them on the phone and passing all the information along to them, basically the dispatchers at Central will type all that stuff in and then just turn it right over. So the tribal PD or CMU PD will take right over. And then we can see the progress. We can see if they need help or if they, what's going on. So it really will be a good system.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Sheriff. Now, outside of those larger items, we see the usual and customary county expenses that we get every month. I didn't know if we had any other further discussion with that. Any other questions? No. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move this item to tonight's regular board meeting. Now, as for the June 9th invoice list, I noticed one thing right off the top, and that was for the Commission on Aging. They got their new vehicle, which I thought was really nice. I know they desperately very much needed it, so it's good to see that they've got it. And obviously, I was very surprised by the price. That's pretty impressive for a Traverse. My mother happens to be shopping for one now. She can't get that deal. No, can't get that deal. And obviously that comes out of their cost Commission on Aging fiscal year 2023 capital budget. So that's something they've budgeted for. And then the other larger items I see in the June 9th invoice list are monthly medical services contracts. Expenses for what, $35,593. That was we seem to spend a lot of money there on a regular basis for the medical services at the jail. Again, outside of that, for the June 9th list, pretty customary in terms of the expenses. Any questions, gentlemen? No. Seeing none, we'll move that item as well to tonight's regular board meeting. Now for the adjustment list of June 15th. Again, we find the usual payments for early payment discounts to Gordon Food Service for both the sheriff and Commission on Aging. And then we see the payments to the Wex Bank, JP Morgan Chase to avoid late fees by the sheriff's office and the county administration office. And everything else, the usual. Any discussions about that adjustment list? Hearing none, again, we'll move that item onto tonight's meeting. The second item we have is to consider approving the prime contract change order number 7 with Clark Construction and the net additional amount of $29,369 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This prime contract change order from Clark is invariably going to be one of many now that we're getting this project rolling. I did have a couple notes on that. We had the extra costs for some of the food service equipment, changes there that need to be made to satisfy requirements for the kitchens. And then some construction material cost increases of about a little over 17,000 over the items in that. I don't know if Administrator Frost, you wanted to add anything to that on what you saw in that change order?
I think you did great. I think MDOC came back and requested a few changes. I think we had to increase the size of a few rooms. So that was the other thing in addition to the kitchen. But I would just say that even though this is about a $30,000 increase, the budget of the project is not increasing because remember that big change order we had earlier that lowered the cost, we're still working off of that. So Clark Construction will continue to use out of that buyout line, if you will,
before they start pulling or adding
Before
to the
they come to
cost.
us, yeah. Well, they have a contingency on top of that, so hopefully we'll never.
Questions, gentlemen? No? Hearing none, we'll move this item to our regular board meeting tonight. Third item. Administrator Frost had mentioned the staffing issues within administration. This kind of goes along with that to consider approving the engagement letter with Manor Custerison dating June 2nd, 2023 for accounting and consulting services and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Did you want to, do you need to speak
Sure.
to that anymore?
Yep, the county has had a contract in place with Maynard Custerison. If you remember, that's where Steve Karinovic, our contracted director of financial services, that's where he hails to us from. So we did have an agreement in place, but when the recent need to engage with Maynard, with our accountant, with one of our accountants leaving, we didn't require CPA services, so we didn't need the level of service that Steve Karinovic provides to us. We required what's called an associate. Someone who's paid lesser at their firm. The contract we had in place didn't name an associate or name a price for an associate. So that's what this contract does. Of course, it's been a few years since we had a contract with Maynard, so they did increase the costs of the other engagements as well. But as you see spelled out in that contract.
Thank you.
I'll just add for clarification, for folks out there, we've used Maynard Custerison for several years, at least since 2016. I'm aware of.
Yes.
So it's not new. We've used them in some capacity, some years more, some years a little bit less. And I think the last couple of years, we've used them a lot less than we had prior. Just to try to cut down on some of those costs and do some of that stuff in-house, but we still engage their services and have for several years.
They've done a good job for us, in other words. Great. Okay. Any other discussion, gentlemen? And hearing none, we'll move this item to our board meeting tonight. I'd like to invite John Crawford, Mike Papa from Johnson's Controls to come up. They've got a presentation for us regarding preliminary analysis and their findings for Isabella County.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Hopa. I am the area manager for Johnson Controls. And with me is John Crawford. I don't know if you want us to turn the computer as we're, but we'll try to look into so everybody can see us in the home audience. What we have is a presentation that you have. It's an abbreviated presentation from last week. So we didn't want to go through all the little things that we had talked about, but you do have copies of the full presentation as well. So we're going to give you the abbreviated version. And what we did is we took a look at several of your large facilities, and John will get into some of the things we found and what we looked at. But we wanted to look at and see what makes sense and what's possibility within your facilities to create some efficiencies, fix problems that you have, and maybe even generate some electricity to lessen the cost of your electric bills. So we used, we came up here, we brought our crew with us, we went through facilities. Everybody was very helpful in putting this together. So this is from a team effort with your staff. And we came up with a project estimated about $7 million. And that is looking at energy and operational savings. That's looking at applying some of the ARPA dollars and then some of the IRA, which is the current opportunity through the federal government mainly for the solar, and it comes in the form of a tax credit back to you, which is different than what we've ever seen before. Normally, tax credits go back directly to private entities, but now they're allowing public entities to take advantage of that. So it's a really good opportunity to invest in solar for production of electricity. So we'll kind of go through this, talk about some of the things we found, what it looks like, and the next steps. And if there's questions, please stop us. We'll try not to dig in too deep, but just give you the highlight of some of the things we found and kind of the plan moving forward. All right. I'm going to just switch seats so we're not moving the computer back and forth.
All right, so as Mike mentioned, we walked a lot of your facilities. These photos kind of illustrate some of the stuff we saw and some of the improvements that are capable at your sites here. The first few photos here describe the mechanical systems, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, that provide heating and cooling in the buildings. Some of the equipment is quite old. This is in the admin building, 1970s. We got air handling units that need some more work done to them to make them more functional. There's some changes that can be made to make them more efficient, bringing them back to their original intended purpose for variable air volume. The cooling system is also quite old, and these condensers on the roof should be changed out, as well as the air conditioning chiller in photo 3 there. Photo 4 is of a rooftop unit over at the trial courts building. That building is pushing 24 years old and needs to be replaced as well. That's at its useful life. So all these pieces of equipment, for multiple reasons, energy being part of it, age being part of it, additional capital costs and ongoing maintenance, all increasing, be replaced. And this is pretty common throughout all the buildings throughout the county. There's a little bit of everything in every building that needs to be replaced. Additional mechanical equipment throughout the county. There's domestic water heaters, a variety of furnaces scattered throughout different buildings. Heating hot water boilers in a couple of buildings that need to be replaced. Some of them are not functioning right now. Others are having increased maintenance issues and should be problem. When we look at the heating and hot water system and chill water system, we'll be looking at the pumps and evaluating those for replacement as well. Again, to try and drive some efficiencies on the energy side. At the heart of the building heating cooling system are the controls. These monitor the temperature. Some of these might look familiar to what you see in your house. Photo 3, this is kind of more of a residential style thermostat. Photo 1 and 2 are variations on the direct digital control systems that are in a lot of commercial buildings now. We would propose bringing everything up to the direct digital control standards, so it gives the staff the ability to see into the buildings and control stuff remotely, monitor, make changes as needed without having to go to the site and make all the changes. Some of the buildings have pneumatic controls. That's using compressed air to modulate stuff. That's a outdated old technology, and it's inefficient. It causes a lot of maintenance issues when they go down. A lot of leaks can happen, so that should be changed out to direct digital control as well. On the lighting, a handful of buildings had already been replaced back in December, January. You guys did a project already. And we noticed that in the electric bills, it's about an 18 to 20% decrease that you've already realized in those facilities. So we would propose picking up the additional lighting that hasn't been done yet throughout the county and changing those out to LED. There's a handful of buildings that we have identified as opportunity for that. Be the interior as well as exterior building mounted lighting. On the building envelope side, this is anywhere from repairing and replacing door sweeps and insulation around windows and weather stripping around windows and doors. all the way up to replacing the roof where we're proposing solar, and I'll talk about that in a second here. The trial court roof building is approaching the end of its life and should be replaced before anything else is added to that roof. The solar photovoltaic, solar PV is being recommended at 4 sites. The administration building. These are sites that have adequate roof space available to generate enough energy to offset what it's currently using without overproducing in many cases. The solar, you can kind of see demonstrated here, these little blue boxes is laid out so that we're avoiding trees and shadows. You can see this big pine tree here casts a shadow, so we're trying to avoid that. So we're getting maximum efficiency out of the solar panels. Similar at the trial courts building, we will install solar panels that work around the mechanical system so the staff can still maintain it and repair it and do whatever necessary to keep that functioning. You'll see these graphs that show the energy production. This is trying to be maximized so that we're producing all what the facility uses throughout the year. Michigan has some net metering laws, so we're trying to stay underneath that net metering cap and not overproduce. The value of that energy goes down after 200 kW. And then over at the materials recovery facility, again, we are trying to maximize the energy production here. We have our solar panels laid out. This one is designed to be a little bit more than what you're currently using, understanding their future expansion coming. We were trying to show the capability of the system being able to be sized and generate enough electricity to offset that future expansion in electrical usage. And then this building, the Commission on Aging, we are looking at solar panels on a carport structure out in the parking lot. There are some options here as well. We can move this to different locations, possibly over in some grass area, but I understand there might be a pavilion going in there, so. There will be, okay. All this quantified into energy units, about 16.25 million kilowatt hours per year reduction, total production over 20-year reduction. 173 billion BTUs reduction over 20 years, 22.7 tons of carbon reduced over the years. So this equates to gallons of gasoline at 2.3 billion, 4,000 homes of electricity used in a year, 53 million miles driven in a year, and kind of equivalents that the Department of Energy has put together. Potential energy savings on the electric side is 118,000. This includes EV production at the 4 sites, natural gas about 6,200. Water, you have some pretty low water rates for the variable side, so there's really only a couple billions that would fit into that. We are getting some more data, so we might have. So the overall savings is $126,000 per year, about 55% of your. And as you see there, the material recovery facility is higher than you're currently spending. That because we're right now not comparing it to the future expansion, how much electricity. Utility costs before and after. So as you can see here, the electricity drops from 160,000 down to 42. That's with the solar PV being installed, and natural gas a drop there as well, and then water a slight drop on. So there's obviously a lot of benefits here: health, comfort, air quality, reduction in energy and operation cost, higher infrastructure reliability. Your maintenance staff will have new equipment, so there shouldn't be as much repairs and maintenance as they are facing with all the old equipment right now. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mike and talk about next steps.
Strange seats.
Yep.
Two of us are.
Once we keep that.
So this is kind of the timeline that we've set, that we've talked about, discussed. You know, we did the MOU signed. Thank you very much. Allowed us to do this prelim. We presented the findings. And now we're at that point where we're ready to move that step, which is a project development agreement that you see on June 20th. From there, that really gives us the option to really do the final designs, get pricing, and really firm up what that project's going to look like. Like I said in the beginning, we estimated there could be $7 million worth of value. That may not be the final project. It's a project that we'll bring back to you on our findings, and you'll get to pick and choose what that project looks like. So we are kind of at that development stage right now for the PDA. And then once that's signed, we will have people on site. You won't get sick of us, but you might see a lot of us. Because we will bring John and his team will be here pretty consistently, really delving into everything and making sure that what we found in preliminary makes sense, and really doing more detailed analysis on the energy. I did get some stuff. I haven't seen it yet on the IRA. So we'll understand that a little bit better on what the percentage of credit that we can apply back to the project. So I think that'll give us an idea of that funding, and we'll do some workshops along the way to make sure that everybody engaged from a savings perspective, what the IRA is going to look like, and kind of what that project's going to look like. So that's where we are today.
Can tell I have a question. He can tell I have a question. If you don't mind, if I'd ask, if we miss the IRA credit window, so say we don't know, there's already hundreds of people online and the money runs out before we get there. How does that play out in the project? Because obviously we're using that on the front end to say, you know, here's some extra to help fund the project. But at what point do we know those credits are a yes, and we're going to get them?
So once we get a scope of work that we can present and file the paperwork, you'll get a notification back. Now, you don't get the money till the end of the project.
Sure.
So, but you will have notification prior to starting that. So I would think we'd want to schedule the solar piece of that project later, because it's probably a 12 to 18 month project to do all this stuff. And, you know, and based on the fact using the IRA dollars, we want to know if we get the minimum of 30%, or if we get 40% or 50%. I would say once we'll know that real quick, once we file it. I think the paperwork's pretty simple.
Okay.
And you can't rely on that until the end of the project and the final paperwork gets submitted.
Thank you. It's got to be a known before we go forward with financing. So it's a known at that time. That's helpful.
Yeah, it will be. So I think from a financing perspective, we would probably work with you to put together, and again, we can help you, or you can do it on your own, but that's some pretty good people that can structure these deals so that we can take advantage of the IRA. And then if we don't get it, don't lose any momentum.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But I think you'll be in pretty good shape. So there are people waiting to submit. But it's not an open end.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, didn't you say you have, at some point, you have to check soon with consumers and see if they think it's kosher or whatever?
Yeah, so we have to, we do all the filing of the paperwork. We've done it quite a few times, so I don't know that it's that big of a problem. John and his team know how to size it. Behind John, there's a whole solar team. That's all they do is work on solar. So they'll work with consumers, but yes, they will find out, is this the right size? Will they sign off on it? Because what I don't want to do is produce electricity that you're getting no value for. And that's why you'll see the different sizes on the different buildings.
Thank you.
We'll know from consumers that we will get approval from them. That's John and his team do all that work. But we just did this at Eaton County. So we did some carports and we did, and the, you know, was it consumers, John?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So they were good to work with.
Mhm.
They're a little bit slow, but they're very good to work.
The carports at Commission on Aging, that covered the energy use here? Because it seemed rather small compared to, say, the trial court building.
Yeah, they're all matched to not produce on the energy that you're currently using. There you go. So, yeah, so we're trying to size this so that we're kind of matching what you're currently spending, knowing that we'll be reducing the electrical usage through the performance contract along the way. So all that'll be kind of worked out in this next phase of the detailed audit.
Yeah, what we want to do is look at how do we reduce your current usage and then size that solar to that usage, not to the current usage. So that'll be, you know, create that efficiency. I can tell you that I'm not sure how many spaces, John, that will cover.
Looked like 24 or so. But have you had any opportunity to look at the correction facility plans for solar?
That's something we talked about, and we would do in our next, in our evaluation. So we can look at that. What I would probably do is take a look at the potential and have to, I probably want to model that building a little bit to understand what your future costs would be from electrical and gas. Sure, you got some estimates of that. But John and his team could model it and give us an idea of what that potential can be. Because again, you've got, I believe we discussed, you had some property that we could use. To put a
60 acres.
Oh, in addition to that, there's double check, but lower hot water potential at any jail site. We've done a lot of prisons, a lot of jails where not just solar voltaic producing electricity, but solar hot water for the water needs, which tends to be, I don't know how many inmates you plan to have, but
We plan to have 187 every day.
a lot of hot water.
Yeah.
A lot of water potential there too, and I'm assuming you don't have that built into the project.
That is correct. If we have a solar shower built into the project, it's one of those black plastic bags hanging on the side of the building. Yeah, we were not that progressive in the beginning, but we don't have to be, right? It's going to be a brand new roof. We've got potential.
Yeah, so it's, well, and you think about what you put into a jail, and solar hot water is not one of the top priorities. But it is an opportunity for you. I just got some new guidance, so I need to go through those documents.
Gentlemen, any other questions? Madam Administrator, I do have one. I know I'd like to revisit this particular aspect of what we discussed during our Finance and Administration Committee meeting. How to put this? Obviously, with this agreement, if for any reason we chose to back out of it, it's $351,400 if we sign it and then choose to back out. So here's my predicament as a finance guy. I realize we're going to save approximately $126,000 a year. So for me, I'm thinking the sooner we can get to saving $126,000 a year, the better, correct? That makes sense from a fiduciary standpoint and responsibility to our taxpayers. We need to get to that $126,000 a year savings. That we're not paying out for loan payments, right? Or payments on this approximately $7 million project, correct? So when we, in the committee meeting, we discussed having those numbers of what it's actually going to cost. And you obviously don't have that. You're not going to have that until after we sign this. So that, just so you know, just be right up front, we're going to be having this conversation at tonight's board meeting a little further, unless you can help me understand how it is that we're gonna sign this agreement and not know how much it's gonna cost, because however much it's gonna cost is gonna dictate how long we pay $126,000 a year towards paying it off, and how long it's gonna take before we start realizing some of that money. Okay, so you get where I'm going with this? Okay, so obviously, we're gonna have this conversation tonight. Okay, so if you have got some input on that, you could help us with that. Because obviously the crux is for me, I really have a problem signing off on something that I don't know what I'm gonna be paying for.
So what the agreement is an engineering document that says we're gonna engineer this project. Along the way, we'll have steps that we get to build it in. I think we're pretty comfortable with the number that we gave you as a minimum. And that will exceed that number pretty easily when we get the full development. I
Expect that.
it's easier for me to be conservative and over deliver. Customers like it that way.
Mhm.
So I think we're pretty good on that now. The actual project though may be something different where you may say, look, based on this, I want this type of profile. I don't know that yet until we do our due diligence. And that, again, that's what this agreement is giving us, the ability to go do our due diligence. So to come back to you and say, here's what it looks like. If you do this, you get 126,000. If you do this, you get 90,000. If you do this, you get 150,000. That's what this due diligence is going to do for you. The 126, I think, is just a starting point. I think as we get into it and monitor, and we'll actually put monitors on equipment so that we're getting.
Understand all that.
I think this gives you a snapshot of what you can look forward to. And again, on a conservative estimate.
Again, if we get back to the costs, my expectation would be that we would receive the cost breakdown of everything that you're going to do. We bring in our experts, our facilities director, we review those potential expenses, those potential costs, and then get back to you and we discuss it prior to potentially signing off on $351,000. That's kind of the conversation we had at committee. And I just want to reiterate that so you guys can start thinking about the conversation we're going to have at our regular board meeting. So that's all I have. Just want to bring that up. Gentlemen, do you have anything else? All right, Mr. Crawford. Oh, madam.
One question, at committee, I know the big difference about this relationship is because they're gonna guarantee the savings, right? And they're doing this due diligence because they're putting their promise on the line too. So I think that is a big difference, but in committee, I heard maybe the guy who's not here conveniently. Maybe I heard John say guaranteed savings and guaranteed costs.
Yes.
Because of, can you talk about the guaranteed costs? And I realize we're not talking about the $350,000 cost of their work to do all of this over time. I'm talking about the cost of the projects. Because we had this little jail project that kind of grew in cost on us over time. So we want to hear about that guaranteed cost when you bring that proposal to us.
So here, let me kind of back up a little bit. So this agreement tonight, we're not asking for any dollars up front. We're saying if we come back and here's a project and you like the project, we move forward. If you don't like the project, you ask for the engineering time, which is different than your normal project, which you pay for engineering time all up front before you get anything. So we're not asking for that cost right now. We're confident that we can get a project that it's going to deliver what you want. There's two things that are guaranteed under the contract. First of all is the energy savings. So what if that final number is 129,000 or 160,000? We guarantee that number over the term of that contract, whatever it may be. Typically they run 20 years. So you will have a guarantee for that amount that with escalation we talked about that you will have for that full term. We will measure and verify that and present a report to you on an annual basis. First year, we look at it quarterly so that we make sure we're contract. So during construction, you will actually be building up savings as we construct. So if I came in this room and it needed a lighting retrofit, probably the first thing I'm going to start with is here. And I'm going to start generating savings so that when the project's done, that you're going to have savings in your budget to pay for that long term. That's one guarantee. The second guarantee is if I come to you and say this project, let's just use the 7 million because that was in the is $7 million. It doesn't matter if costs go up or if I miss something, I'm on the hook for $7 million project. There are no change orders. So it's a lot different than what you're currently used to. That's why we engineer it the way we engineer it up front, because we're pretty conservative and we're pretty good at what we do. So again, the energy savings will be there. We will guarantee it. The construction costs, whether they go up, they never go down, will be guaranteed as part of that contract. And that's what we're asking tonight, is to start that process and come back to you with all the numbers, the right numbers and a contract so that you can review it, make an informed decision on it. But I'm not asking you tonight to pay me anything. That gets rolled into the contract. It's part of the engineering. And again, which is different than what you're used to there, where you have to pay the engineering up front. That makes sense.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? John, Mike, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate your time. All right,
But you.
on to item number 5. Which ties in with their presentation. Consider approving the project development agreement between Johnson Controls, Inc. and Isabella County for detailed project development, determine the viability of projects for a performance contract, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So, as you mentioned, this is just a agreement where they're going to perform the engineering, work through the engineering, figure out exactly what it's going to cost us, what they're going to charge us in order to make these changes and renovations and improvements to our buildings and facilities to help us save, hopefully in the $120,000 to $160,000 a year range. Okay, so I know I've voiced some concerns. If I want to do it here and there, I'll wait till tonight. I'll bring up my last point tonight when we get together. Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions or any other discussion with this? All right, we're hearing none. We'll move this item to our regular board meeting tonight.
Page 2.
Page 2. Okay, item number 6. Where am I? We have consider accepting and placing on file the 2023 State Tax Commission Form L-4046 Taxable Valuation Report as presented. So there he is, Mr. Preston. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you folks doing?
Hoping you can speak to this item for us.
Yes, this is the L-4029, which is your setting forth of the millage rate that you're going to be levying on the summer tax bill for your general operating. This does not include all of the other millages, as those will be presented to you in July and on the winter tax bill. So this is just simply your 6.61 levy. It was not rolled back by Headley. Even though that there was a capped rate of inflation of 5%, actual rate of inflation was 7.9. Putting that into the formula, the county saw no rollback. All the previous information that we presented to you that was prepared by Judy Niznak with the estimated collections and such has not changed.
Thank you,
That's all I
sir.
have. Thank you.
Nicole, did you want to speak to that anyway? No one do you have any questions about setting that millage rate? No further discussion. We'll move that item to tonight's regular board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item number 7, pertains to you as well. I think I have a better grasp on this one. Item number 7 is consider approving the State Tax Commission Form L-4029 2023 tax rate request form, setting the 2023 Isabella County separate tax limitation operating rate at 6.61 mils and authorizing the board chair and county clerk to sign the same. So my
And then that-
understanding is this is our biannual summer tax authorization, correct, from the board in order to.
Correct. And I totally got those confused. The first one was the 4046, which is the equalization director's essentially culmination reporting to the state tax commission. My apologies. This is the levy of your millage. You are correct. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay. Very good. So, obviously we need to authorize this in order to collect our revenue. So, this is how we gain our tax money and revenue. So, any discussion, gentlemen? Madam Administrator, nothing from you? Okay. We'll move this item again to tonight's regular board meeting. Item number 8. Consider approving fiscal year 2023 budget amendment number 2023-12, the third quarter budget adjustments for general fund, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. I am going to turn this over to Madam Administrator to give us all the details.
Well, how about if I hit the highlights? If you want the details, finance was recorded. But really the highlights, this budget amendment decreases general fund balance by a couple $100,000. There's a lot of good news, a lot of bad news in here, a lot of things that net zero. We're just like in facilities, we're taking trash pickup and doling it out to appropriate line items instead of all under the 265, if you will. Good news, additional recreational marijuana tax, almost to the tune of $34,000. Some coronavirus still grants we're getting for some intern positions in the PA office to the tune of almost 25,000, and over $80,000 from the state for personal property tax reimbursement. Those are all things that we didn't budget for, didn't know were coming. So good news there. Over on the decrease side, we're actually taking opioid settlement dollars out of general fund. And in the next budget amendment for other funds, you'll see we're putting it in its own fund. And probably the big tough one on this budget amendment is the federal inmate housing. So that's the US Marshals contract. So even with the increased daily rate that sheriff was able to negotiate in the current year, we just aren't seeing the number of prisoners. So that revenue line item is way down from what's budgeted. So we are decreasing that revenue line by $200,000. Down below, a lot of things just kind of cancel each other out, but a few departments have some overtime that we're feeding and some PTO payouts with all of the resignations and retirements. We didn't budget enough for PTO payouts. Are there any questions about any of the items in the budget amendment 2023-12 for general fund?
No other discussion? We'll move that item to tonight's board meeting as well. Item 9. Consider approving fiscal year 2023 budget amendment number 2023-13, third quarter budget adjustments for other funds, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Madam Administrator, we'll turn this over to you as well.
Sure. So for Parks and Rec Fund, we're taking out the $250,000 that was budgeted for Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project. That's not happening in fiscal 23. It'll happen in 24. So just removing that from the budget, building in a Register of Deeds automation fund project for some data processing hardware that the Register of Deeds needs. The opioid settlement monies, you'll see fund balance increasing in a new fund 284. That's what the state tells us, the fund that we need to use. And so we're just increasing revenue and increasing fund balance in our new opioid settlement fund. Commission on Aging, They are decreasing their fund balance and moving monies towards that new caregiver position. And in inspections, they're increasing fund balance and increasing revenue due to the actually it's a net zero. They're increasing revenue and increasing expenses. This is the Spicer review for our trades, for the mechanical, electrical and plumbing permits on the jail project, actually. So helping out our inspections fund by doing that there. So those essentially all net out to zero. Are you having any questions about the other funds budget amendment?
I have none.
Very straightforward.
No other questions? No other discussion? We'll move that item to tonight's regular board session. Okay. You guys are going to be happy to hear this. Last but not least. Fiscal year 2024 requested budget draft number 1 update. I will turn this over to you, Administrator Frost, but I do want to say one thing. I've been coming to the staff meetings and having conversations at finance and with Administrator Frost. I'm very impressed, and I want to express my appreciation to all the folks that are bringing information to this process so that we can have, so that our best guess, this moving target called a budget, can be as accurate as we possibly can. So we don't have to keep going back and forth with budget amendments, and at least try to minimize that at best and allow us as county commissioners to do our job and do it well, and know what we can and what we can't do and what we can look forward to doing and what we could potentially do down the road. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to all the department heads and all the folks that are bringing information to Madam Frost and Melissa, so that we can put this thing together and make it work for us. So thank you. So, Madam Administrator, it's all you.
Great introduction to a big, scary, darn near $4 million number. So the draft one was in your packets. And you'll, if you want the detail, please watch finance. I'll just go over some big highlights, lowlights type of thing. You'll see in the draft $27 million in revenue, $31 million in expenses. Our county budget is not that big. The 24 budget is being elevated by the big tower project that sheriff has secured funds through the state of Michigan for, right? So remember, that was a $4.8 million project. You've made the first, I think, 10% payment. We do expect some more in the current year, but the bulk of that project is going to happen in fiscal 24. That's what's driving up your federal, state, and local contributions to over 7 million, and that's what's driving those expenditures in the sheriff's office too. Okay, we did want to point that out. It's a net zero because it is revenues and expenditures. We are looking at, even though the turbines will be depreciated more in fiscal 24, the increase in taxes is netting out. You see the taxable values that Mr. Preston is bringing forward. Our taxes are netting out an additional $1 million in taxes to the county, even with the turbines going down, because other property increased so much. So that's fantastic news. And probably points out the biggest anomalies as you look at these numbers. We did build in a 10% increase for health insurance. We'll meet with 44 North soon on the renewal. We did build in a 2.5% increase for wages already built in. You heard from Johnson Controls potential to erase some of this capital request, right? The over $3 million in capital request. The bulk of that comes from the HVAC project at the county building. So that JCI project may be one way to manage cutting some of those expenses. That'll be a big target, certainly. a lot of personnel requests. These are already built into the requested budget. Capital request, everything is built into the budget. So now we just need to start balancing. Are there any specific questions? Yes, sir.
Board of Commissioners amended, that number is up, is that for some room? On the very first, yeah, from the 23 amended, how come?
Sure, so a couple of things we have built into the Board of Commissioners budget current year are the ARPA dollars for a wage study and the ARPA dollars for the Board of Commissioners AV upgrade.
Yeah, the boardroom.
Current year, it's built into the commissioner's budget. Melissa, is there anything else that's driving that up current year?
Mhm.
Those are the big ones that we.
Okay.
Those are kind of the things that we have to figure out where to put it, somewhere kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Commissioners, any other questions from the administrator? I don't think we're gonna move that item to the board meeting tonight. That's a done deal. Chairperson Hope. That concludes the work of the Finance and Administration Committee for this meeting.
Very wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that will bring us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items and we will be expedient on how we do these. So first up is consider approving the renewal of the Westland contract to provide legal research for the Isabella County Public Defender's Office for additional 3 years term and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Public Defender Hausman on the line, I believe. I think we've had this contract since 2019 and the same company that the trial courts use and prosecutors. So not too much explaining, it's just well needed. So Public Defender Hausman, would you like to comment on this anymore?
I think you pretty much nailed it on the head. The contract has been vetted by the folks at Cole Stoker. And obviously, going back a couple of years, I worked with both Ms. Dorothy Marshall at the prosecutor's office as well as Ms. Carrie Curtis to try and actually consolidate all these together so that we're only cutting 1 check a month to Westlaw for all these services that we provide. I'm sure you'd be surprised to hear that they're not exactly easy to get a hold of when you want to consolidate accounts to potentially pay less to them. So we have gone through that and we've kind of worked on it in the past few years, kind of struggled to get there, but it is something that I'd like to kind of continue to look at in the future. But yes, standard contact, they're a 3-year term. And so they contacted me about 2 weeks ago to say our contract was up and we needed to renew it.
Okay, pretty similar to what we've been doing. So is there any more questions to Public Defender Hausman? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's business session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, item number 2, consider approving the fiscal year 2024 Victim Rights Prosecutor Grant application and authorize the board chair to sign. And we have Prosecutor Dave Barberry here to go over it, but basically approve this grant to fund 2 full-time positions for victim rights coordinator and advocator.
Good evening. I guess I'd like to just indicate that this is the same grant that we annually apply for. It does fund 2 positions in our office as well as some 5% funding for direct victim service needs. Our office utilizes the money to help coordinate people for court, to coordinate services for crime victims, and to really assist victims through the criminal justice process. That's the primary role of the victim advocate. And again, this is a grant that we typically or I should say, we have asked for every year for the last, well, every year that I've been in office, and I couldn't tell you how many years before that. And about 4 years ago, we improved the grant from a single full-time position to a full-time and a part-time, and then from a full-time, or I'm sorry, to then 2 full-time positions. So currently, that's what we're asking for. It's the allocation amount is, I believe, identical, with the exception of a little bit of a difference in the 5% money from last year, and it is a reimbursement grant. Any questions at all? It's kind of a straightforward application.
Any questions for prosecutor? None. We'll move this forward to tonight's meeting. And the last item also with prosecutor Dave Barberry is consider the ability to increase and negotiate the starting salary for Isabella County Assistant Prosecutor position to non-union employee wage scale pay grade 15, step 5 years, up to the amount of $72,323.63, effective immediately upon the Board of Commissioners approval at the June 20th, 2023 meeting. Go ahead and bring this pretty simple negotiating tool for you.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what I'm looking for is the flexibility to make a more rapid offer to an individual if they meet the qualifications and if they have the requisite experience that we think would be appropriate, to offer them a higher than starting salary. Just a common scenario is that, you know, we may find a candidate who's looking for a position, then we, you know, make an offer, but we're kind of tied to that entry level position without the authority of the board to offer us to come in at a higher level. So if we have somebody that's got 2 or 3 or 4 years experience, we're kind of stuck with that entry level offer. By the time we come back to the board, they may have already relocated or found a position that's paying more in another community. So that's really what I'm looking for, is the flexibility, not to just throw the highest number at somebody, but the ability to act fast and be more nimble if we find a candidate that meets those requirements.
Yeah, and just also, we do not have a meeting on July 4th, so this would be would be a long time period to not be able to have that ability, so.
You know, I think there's a couple of things I'd like to at least point out in the staff report. Certainly the fact that we've over the years, prosecutors' offices around the state used to get a number of applicants for open positions. You know, we've been really limited in the applicants that we're receiving now. And, you know, the issue is certainly overall salaries and wages, loss of pensions, things of that nature. And that's just kind of the nature right now in prosecution. But the reason mainly for the request is, again, to have that opportunity to make a quick offer, or at least not necessarily a quick offer, but an offer that would be much quicker than coming back to the board in July and getting a response at that point, because that candidate may very well be gone. And frankly, we're down 2 right now. We're hurting, you know, with only 7 attorneys being down 2, that makes it tough. On any given day, you know, we have 4 judges and 2 magistrates, well, 3 really, but 2 that keep us pretty busy. So we could be stretched very thin, and it slows down all the processes, not just our office, but also the courts, and not having bodies available to review things and having to put somebody in the courtroom at all times makes it even more challenging. So I also think it's important to stress that the fiscal responsibility side of this from my position, you know, yes, I want that ability to hire and hire, but I have current employees that I've got to be respectful of and not coming in at a higher level. It's not just something where I'm planning on coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to see if they'll take the most amount of money possible that we can give to them, because I want to balance the budget the best we can too. I know the strains on everybody in our county that way. So yes, I want to have that option, but I don't plan on making those offers unless a candidate were extremely worthy of that opportunity.
Are there any questions on this from the rest of the commissioners?
Just a comment. I mean, I think across the board, the commissioners realize some of the problems we're having with favor. We really appreciate trying to.
Definitely the hardest thing that I felt so far about transitioning from private practice to the public sector is the constraints on the budget. I mean, I understand the reason for it. It's the public's utility and the public's money. But at the same time, inability to act quickly is challenging.
I definitely appreciate, the fact giving the heads of the departments across, I think the county, the ability to be able to manage their departments, I think, more freely to help with especially with this environment of keeping our employees happy and hiring employees. I really believe that in the future, we should probably, as far as hiring goes, because we're seeing such difficulties, not tying ourselves down to these starting pay grades and realizing people's experience and understanding that the heads of our departments and our managers are there with their budgets and with the best mind of the county in practice, and that we don't necessarily need to administrate heavily across the board for them, that they can take some of the load on their shoulders. I think this does that very well. Although, may need to increase your budget. Right?
A different conversation for
Right.
another day.
Right. There are no other questions. We'll bring this forward to tonight's regular session. And with that, Chairperson Hope, that ends the business of Criminal Justice County Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosecutor
Attending along
Barbary.
with
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving letters of agreement for professional services with Christopher S. Patterson of Fahey, Schultz, Berzer, and Rhodes PLC for services related to forthcoming utility scale solar project, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And we have Tim Neoport, the Community Development Director, to give us the background on this. Hi, Tim.
Hi there, good afternoon. So this is the first of two that I have in front of you tonight for professional services. So we had professional services, hired professional services for the wind turbine project back in 2016-ish. We came to you out in front of that project, knowing there was a forthcoming project so that we could kind of keep the horse out in front of the cart. Essentially, that's what we're doing here with utility solar. We're hearing projects are, imminent. They're going to be coming. We don't know when, we don't know where, we don't know what exactly. We'll know that when it hits my desk. But what I would like to have is for these professional services to be out in front of that. This first request is for Fahey, Schultz, Berzich, and Rhodes. Bill Fahey was the lead on our project for wind turbines. We have a lot of experience with him. We had a great experience with him through the process. He did represent us all the way through that process, which took us into 2023. So we are trying to go back to him to see if he would be willing to come forward. He has agreed to. He's provided us with a letter of agreement. Our county attorney, Tim Perrone, has reviewed it and seen no legal objection to the letter of agreement for him to provide those services. The last thing I'd like to state on this is the dollars that go towards paying for these services solely come into us from the escrow dollars that is at permit payment time. So part of the fee structure builds in the collection of escrow dollars to pay for these services. The county does not pay for these services at all. The user pays all these fees.
Oh, that means when there's a project, that fund is going to be set up right then, or?
Yeah, what happens is we'll get a project in, we'll do the estimates on what dollar number, we need to charge. We'll bring an escrow, likely we'll probably collect that fee up front, but we'll bring a resolution because the way the fee structure is established is the board has to approve the resolution for the dollars that we end up putting into escrow. We'll work with accounting to provide 2 new escrow lines for us, and we'll make payments from that through the process. The fee structure also has a process in the event that we come up short on dollars that we can go back to the applicant and require additional escrow dollars. So the entire project for wind turbines was paid for by the developer, and none of those dollars came from county dollars to do the review of or any of the legal review of that project. Same with this.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to the next one.
Okay, next item, consider approving the professional service agreement with Spicer Group for services related to the application for special land use and site plan review for the forthcoming utility scale solar project, and authorize the board chair to sign this.
Pretty much the same thing I just said to you with regard to the legal document. This is for Spicer Engineering. They'll do all the site plan review, all of the legwork on the land use component and approval process thereof. We did send this document, letter of agreement that we received, off to our attorney. Our attorney recommended, Tim Perrone recommended a letter of agreement, I'm sorry, a professional service agreement. He provided that to us. We have provided that over to Spicer, and I did receive it this afternoon, signed by them, 4:45 this afternoon. So I'll be moving that forward with the action, but they have agreed to it. Our attorney has recommended it. And again, just looking to get those, sort of keep the horse out in front of the cart with this project moving forward.
Any questions? I just want to thank Tim on both of these first 2 items. It just makes us look better as a county, be out ahead of this, and this, we hit the floor run when it does happen.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is consider approving the creation of up to 4 irregularly scheduled seasonal employee positions, building, mechanical, electric, and plumbing inspectors within the inspections division of the county community development department, effective immediately.
Yeah, so this is, so we have had for several years, 15, 18 years, a independent contractor agreement for fill-in inspectors. We call them fill-in inspectors. Basically what they are is they're an inspector that can come in and do the work while our inspectors are out. I have certain jobs in my office that many people can do that job. We can fill in when somebody's on vacation. Our trades are building, plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. They're licensed through the state of Michigan, and nobody is certified and licensed to make those decisions except those employees. Those employees take vacations. Those employees are sick. Those employees have to go to formal trainings for continuing education courses. We've had these fill-in inspectors over the years to be able to send somebody out to help us continue with our continuity of service, keeping that service level as continuous as possible. Earlier this year, I brought to you 3 contracts: a building, a plumbing, mechanical, and an electrical. All 3 were past employees of ours that have retired out of the department. And we moved those forward. During that process, our attorneys had taken a look at the requirements that we had in that agreement for the liability insurance coverage. Said can't do that, not allowed to have them on our liability coverage as an independent contractor. So he put together, through Administrator Frost, put together a 1-page kind of addendum to that section, which said, you now need to go get your own insurance, and here's the levels that you need to purchase at. I took that, went back to them, and they said, no, thanks. They're just not willing to spend another, $700, $800 in this. They already pay for their own education, continuing education. They already pay for their own licensing with the state of Michigan. sort of anticipated that. So I thought about some other options that we could utilize. One of them was having some sort of a retainer fee sort of out in front of it, something that we could kind of hold a carrot out and provide them with a little bit of money up front to keep them on, keep them contractual and on an annual basis. And then we would still pay them on an independent contractor basis for the work they did. And some of that would cover their insurance and some of their continuing education potentially. Talked with our legal counsel. They were all game with that, provided me with some language for some new agreements put together, went back to the gentleman again, and they just said, you know, there's some other things that throw a flag up for us. Like if we do get sued, we won't be using county representation and attorney. Now I got to get my own attorney. We budget $7,500 to $10,000 range for all of those trades. So they're making about $2,000 a year, providing this service for them. We need them more than they actually need us. And so that system didn't work out. Went to the drawing board again, kind of started thinking about parks and how we hire some seasonal employees, talked about some on-call seasonal with our legal counsel. They bought into that, said that's a great option. You know, it's something we can do. I just wouldn't consider them on call because we could get into some other issues and problems. So let's work out and have them scheduled. And we'll work towards this like irregularly scheduled. So we will schedule them when somebody has a week off in September, they'll be scheduled for that week. They just won't have a regular weekly or monthly schedule of any sort. Seems to be the best option for us. We do have seasonal employees as defined in our personnel manual. And this meets those requirements. So what I'm looking for today essentially is for the board to kind of authorize and give me the ability to hire fill-ins in this fashion through a seasonal, irregularly scheduled seasonal employee versus any way that we've done it in the past. If this option doesn't work, I think my drawing board has been exhausted. I'm not sure where we go next, but we've done the best that we can do. I think this is a great opportunity for us. Again, this is in the building inspections fund. This is zero general fund impact. This all comes from user fees from the building inspections fund itself. I don't anticipate there to be a greater expense to us than we've been spending over the years to continue to try to provide that high level of service and that continuity of service through the process. And when we don't bring somebody in for 5 days to cover a week's vacation, it's usually when we get over 3 days off, we try to cover one. When we get to 5, we try to get 2 days of coverage. We try to entice them to come in, push a longer day, get a bunch of inspections out of the way for us and help us just kind of keep the load down as much as we can when our full-time people would return. So this is just simply a request to get your authorization and move forward. In the event that you provide that authorization tonight, I have talked with Administrator Frost. I will be preparing a job description and the details of that before I would obviously go out and do any hiring.
Any questions or comments on this item? Go ahead.
The definition of seasonal, is that a time frame?
Yeah, so I think the policy says, I think I might have included that section. So seasonal employees, basically, seasonal employees are those hired to perform duties interrupted by seasons and who may be recalled by a loss of benefits. So the way our policy defines it, it's interrupted by a season. We likely won't use these people in the winter. We never have. It's the summertime. It's that busiest of seasons for us. When somebody takes a vacation in December, it doesn't impact as much. There's still work going on. It's just there's not work that requires us to get there because the building season in the summer is only, this big. Summer season is typically when we would use them. I probably will only use people like between April 1 when frost comes off and we can get guys going. And then deer season starts, stuff sort of dies off for us. So probably around December 1, we would not use them. So we wouldn't use them through that winter month, which according to our attorney would meet our seasonal definition in our policy currently.
If there's no more comments or questions, that concludes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works. Human Resources.
Thank you very much.
Meeting.
Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. Brings us down to general public comment. there anyone for general public comments?
Oh, we're past 7 o'clock, so I'll make this real quick. It is what it is. I kind of sound like a broken record and I don't disagree with Ms. Ross often, but she made a comment earlier that talked about, leadership and vacancies. And I just think it's just the world we're living in right now. I don't think it reflects back on leadership. So with that being said, next week I'll be 13 down. We had an acute exodus, if you will, out of the correction staff. So and it's, one guy went for more than we could ever afford. Another one had a great opportunity with retirement with the state. Another one needed a change in life and left the state and so forth and so forth. So that's 5 in the road. We got 2 that are on FTO right now, so they can't count them, but then there's another 7. So we met with the union today and the supervisors from the corrections, trying to pull the rabbit out of our hat and figure out, those critical position we're in the jail. So I think we got a path. We're going to move some shifts around. We're going to flood them with some road patrol deputies as we can. We're going to pull back a few other things. Our records clerks are going to fill in on some clerical duties in the jail, along with, the administration and so forth. So I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to pass along the teeter totter that we have right now, which is like, again, we're at a pretty critical state right now to manage the jail, but we do have 3 starting after the first of the month. And then we have a plan to hire a few more. We can't train them all at once when we have enough trainers for 2 at a time, but we're going to do like a job shadow, put them in there. At least it's another body. And, that does raise our risk a little bit, but we're going to monitor that very closely and get some people back in there. If we wait to hire them after, we get 2 trained at a time, they won't be here in 3 months. It takes about 3 months to train them. So it's just not an option. So that good news. I'll let you wrap this one up and start the next meeting.
Anyone else for general public comment? Do we have any public online? Do we, Michelle? Okay. All right, we'll move along. Announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? Yes, sir.
I just want to compliment the Sacred Heart Girls softball team for making it to the semifinals and the Beal City Aggie boys baseball team for winning the state title.
Any other announcements? And seeing none, what we'll do is take about a 10 to 15-minute break in between meetings and get started on the regular session. But with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Support.
Supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourned 7:26.
Oh, I think mine was. I just.